Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Brannon House with Worldview Matters.
Welcome to the program. Glad you're with us, and I hope you had a great 4th of July. I did with family and friends, and hope you did as well. Well, we're right back at it because there's issues that you need to know about today that you probably aren't going to hear many other places. One of our columnists, Trevor Loudon, who has been a columnist with us for quite some time now, and then after he was a columnist with us, then Glenn Beck found him and has been promoting him. Let's see now. Glenn Beck is using David Barton. He's using Trevor Loudon, and he's using what of our other columnists that he's used too. I can't remember which one it is now. But it's amazing how many of our guys have been out here for a long time. They're now being discovered by other talk radio outlets, and that's great. And I'm glad that our columnist Trevor Loudon is getting this massive explosion at his website because of people promoting him like Glenn Beck and others. And he has a new column today, 2 new columns at our website today at worldviewweekend.com that you need to know about. And I'm going to make some connections here that I'd venture to guess no one else is going to make. Because as I told you before, one of the things I do is I print out all these different news articles, all these different news stories, and then I kind of go through this stack of things I have here, and I say, wait a minute, now how do these all connect? And one of my other columnists, David Welch, has written an article that is part of the connecting the dots I'm going to do today. So you really need to visit our website, worldviewweekend.com, for 3 articles for sure. And then a 4th we'll add in a minute is not an article, but it's sound bites on how the amnesty and the bill for amnesty will bring us a national ID card and what that means for you and your freedom and your liberty and really for the coming tyranny that this all entails. Now, the first article I want to start with, before I get to 2 by Trevor Loudon and these sound clips by another columnist at our website, is an article by our columnist David Welch. David is down in Texas, and he has an article entitled, we've titled it, Obama Would Use the Church in the Same Way as a Previous Leader on a Different Continent. And to be honest with you, right up front, instead of waiting to the end of the article, he's referring to Hitler. Did Hitler use the church in Germany? Absolutely. They were called the German Christians. That was the title of the group, German Christians. And they were willing to dissolve their denominations and come under one denomination headed by the Reich bishop that was handpicked by Adolf Hitler. Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Martin Niemöller said, oh no, we are not going there because that's pagan spirituality. That's what Hitler was into. That is the bigotry, violence toward the state's defined undesirables, mostly the Jews. And then, of course, the Christians. Hitler hated Christianity. He talked about Christianity and rooting it out. Oh, yes, he made himself look like he was friendly to Christianity publicly so he could use it. But we have more than enough quotes by Adolf Hitler and what he really thought of Christianity. But he used it publicly as a political pawn. Is that happening today? You better believe it. David Welch, writing on our website, says, he's with the U.S. Pastor Council. He said, I became aware the day before the event that President Obama was inviting pastors to his speech about immigration reform at American University on July 1st. There was no surprise there, for clergy have been used and abused by politicians as props as long as there have been politics. For example, well known in the political world, shared and confirmed by Chuck Colson, is how Richard Nixon would wine and dine, in quotes, key pastors, give them the red carpet treatment, and send them home to be good mouthpieces. Much of what the president said in his speech is assessing the crisis will bring little disagreement. As always, the devil's in the details of the solution. The rest of the speech, such as stating that he and the Democrats are ready for action, if only the Republicans would just set aside partisanship to come outside and play, was typical Obama speak. My greatest disappointment was that Pastor Bill Hybels of Willow Creek Church in Illinois took the stand to introduce the president and thereby gave Obama the cover he was looking for. David Welch continues at worldviewweekend.com. Hybels is the driving force behind the seeker-friendly phenomenon that essentially neutralized the evangelical church as a moral force over the last 30 years. He says, I've met Pastor Hybels. I know many pastors who know him much better and believe him to be a decent man who loves God and is sincere. However, his admittance of the failure of the Willow Creek model did not undo the massive damage Christianity Light has done to the church, and as a result of the paralysis of godly influence to the nation. His willingness to use failed leaders like Jimmy Carter in his annual leadership summit as a model of such also reveals either no discernment or lack of consistent biblical standards in that widely viewed conference. My point? When highly influential pastors like Hybel and Joel Osteen, and he puts in parentheses, his giving thanks to God for, quote, raising up, end quote, activist lesbian mayor of Houston, Anise Parker, which that's what Joel Osteen did. They give cover to reprobate politicians, writes David Welch. They yield not only their own moral high ground and influence, but that of pastors all over the nation whom they are perceived to represent. Let me just say right now, David Welch is hitting the nail squarely on the head, which is why we carry his column. This is what I have been saying about not only people like Bill Hybels and his wife, who now writes for Jim Wallace, Obama's Red spiritual advisor, the Marxist Jim Wallace. She's testified before Congress on behalf of the Hybels on amnesty, and we're going to get to how dangerous this is for us in just a minute, and how it will actually usher in a national ID card, and what that means for you. So hold on. We're laying it all out. But understand this. Hybels' wife has testified before Congress saying, I'm speaking on behalf of both of us, Bill and his wife. Now, this is why last week and the week before, I've spent several programs talking about my disappointment with Richard Land of the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest non-Catholic denomination in America. And he was at this speech. And he's running around using the term social justice. And he sits on the Council for Foreign Relations, which desires to destroy our national sovereignty. And he sits on a commission of the U.S. Muslim engagement, trying to dialogue with Muslims to find common ground, when two of them are outright radicals, not moderates. But Richard Land was at this same speech. And I told you then, he's giving Obama cover. And that's exactly what David Welch is saying in this article. He said the other concern, David Welch writing, is that pastors bitten with the market-driven, seeker-friendly church growth bug spread by Hybels and his friends have established large churches, big budgets, and big visibility, but are so far removed from political decision-making they are a joke when they step to the microphone in this manner. Do you not think that Obama and his Chicago squad know very well that Hybels is never likely to risk any disfavor by exerting confrontational leadership on what would define to be conservative issues and values? Politicians like Obama use the same strategy employed by tyrants and regimes who routinely parade puppets representing the opposition, in quote, to prove how benevolent and inclusive they are. That, of course, occurs only after they have imprisoned, intimidated, and or killed those who are any threat. Obama's anti-Christian, anti-life, anti-marriage, anti-constitutional, anti-American policies, in my opinion, prove he has no legitimate interest in hearing from pastors like Hybel. He, in fact, would use the church in the same way as a previous leader on a different continent, as Erwin Lutzer illustrates magnificently in his must-read book, Hitler's Cross, which we've recommended here many times. The theologically shallow and nationalistic nature of the German clergy proved easy pickings for Hitler. Lutzer states, quote, the swastika was in fact adopted as the new cross in the very cathedral where Luther has preached the cross of Christ 400 years before, end quote. Welch continues, the legitimate and proper role of the pulpits in relation to our governing leaders is as the prophetic voice of God's absolute truth upon which their authority rests. As we celebrate the 234th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence this weekend, we should heed the words uttered by